Hello my lovelies, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're staying safe out there and I hope everybody's doing okay, mentally, physically, whatever. I hope you're just doing well and I hope you're just staying at home and keeping safe and keeping your family safe. Today is Sunday, so that means it is Slaughter Sunday with Sally. I'm obviously Sally and what I do is I research the crap out of cases and I talk about them. And I post them on a YouTube channel so you can all talk about them too. And just join in with the chat. Sometimes I do true crime cases, sometimes I do conspiracy theories, I've even looked into some unsolved mysteries. Just whatever takes my fancy on that particular week, if I'm completely honest. Again, today I'm trying out my new equipment. I'm filming in the evening, so there might be a little bit of shadow and stuff, but it is what it is. We're on a lockdown and we all have to do our best to just stay safe, I guess. Please remember to subscribe to my channel, it would mean the world to me. And also if you hit the little bell notification, you will also be told when I post a video. I tend to post every Sunday and I try my best, but sometimes things happen, you know, just life and I'll miss a video. But if that is the case, I will go over to my other social medias and just give you a little bit of a heads up as to why that's happening. Also, if you see my videos over on my other social medias, like my Twitters and my Facebook, then please like, comment and share. The more shares I get, the better. Some of you already do that and I think it's wonderful and I really appreciate it. So thank you so much to the people that already do it. And if you don't, just hit that little share button, it won't cost you a thing. So today I'm going to talk about the case of Elisa Lam, and this also involves part of the Cecil Hotel. I don't know if you've heard of this, but it has been going around on Facebook this week because there's a documentary coming to Netflix and they're shining a new light on this because although it is technically solved, it's still a mystery and there's still lots and lots of conspiracy theories. I already have my opinion on this, which I will share with you at the end. But I went into this video not really knowing that much about it. I saw it come up on a couple of groups that I'm in Facebook and I wasn't really sure what it was, so I did my own research. Initially, from the things that I saw on Facebook, I already had my own ideas of what I thought had happened. But then I did my research and I delved into it really deep and I looked at court papers that I could find. A lot of the stuff is actually still locked to the public for some reason, so I couldn't get loads of information in terms of court documents and all that kind of thing. But I did find some really interesting information and it completely changed my opinion. So let's just get into this, shall we? So the Cecil Hotel was built in 1924 and it opened in 1927 and it is located in downtown LA. It's a 14-storey building and it has 700 guest rooms. Unfortunately, within the first 5 years of the hotel opening, America was actually hit by the Great Depression, so the hotel began to struggle. It was also built on an area that is now known as Skid Row. And Skid Row is a place that's kind of sketchy and it has a lot of drug dealers and a lot of homeless people and it's just not a very good place. And in the 1940s, it's when it really started to go downhill and become very derelict and just really was bad for business for the Cecil Hotel. And the hotel actually started seeing a decline in people that were staying there. In 2007, the hotel was actually partly refurbished because it was bought by a new owner that did start to bring in more people, but it never really lived up to the standards that it was expected to be of because it was in a prominent area when it was first built, but it didn't really ever live up to those standards. In 2011, the Cecil Hotel was actually rebranded and the new owners now call it Stay on Main Hotel. And the reason they did this is because they were trying to get it away from the bad press that it seemed to have received in the past few years. And I will explain more about that in just one moment. By 2017, the Stay on Main Hotel, also known as the Cecil Hotel, was actually branded a historical cultural monument. The City Council got together and held a vote and they deemed it to be now a monument. There are many reasons for this. The time that it was built, the fact that it lived through the Great Depression, all that kind of thing. But the main reason is because the Cecil Hotel, or Stay on Main Hotel, is filled with a very dark history. Starting as early as the 1930s, there have been many cases of people that have committed suicide, been murdered, died, gone missing within this hotel. It has also been the home to a few serial killers and some very high-profile crimes, and I'll talk a little bit about those. I have a list. In 1931, a man called W.K. Norton was found in his room and he had taken poisoned capsules. Allegedly, he had committed suicide. In 1932, a man called Benjamin Dodgett was found by his maid, who was also dead in his room. He had shot himself in the head. In 1934, a young man called Louis Borden was found in his room dead. He had slit his own throat. In 1937, Grace Margot threw herself from a 9th floor window. In 1938, Roy Thompson threw himself from the 14th floor window. 1939, Erwin Nelbert was found in his room. He had also ingested poison. In 1940, a young lady called Dorothy Seeger also was found in her room unconscious. She had also taken poisoned capsules. I can't find any place where it says that she actually died, so I did go in to look at the death records that you can get for free online, and it lists her death date as the 12th of January 1940, so I can only assume that her taking these poison capsules is what ended her life. Now this is a weird one. In 1944, a young lady called Dorothy Purcell was staying in one of the rooms with her then boyfriend. They'd had a lovely evening, they'd gone out and had dinner, and they'd come home. Later that evening, she went to the bathroom complaining that she had stomachache and really bad stomach cramps, and she ended up having a baby on the bathroom floor. The couple state that they didn't know they were going to have a baby, they had no idea she was pregnant, and Dorothy told people that once the baby was born, it was actually dead, so she'd had a stillborn. Because of this, she threw that baby out of a window. Later, when she was charged and arrested for the crime of murder, she said that she was mentally confused, she didn't know why she did it, she just felt this urge to throw her baby out of the window because it was dead anyway. She went to court and she was found guilty, but she was found guilty with diminished responsibility. So I don't know if she served any time in prison, I couldn't find the details for that. But that one was really weird to me. I found that one really strange to read. In 1947, Robert Smith jumped from the 9th floor window and died. 1954, Helen Gurney also jumped from the window, but she jumped from the 7th floor and she also died. And in 1962, Francis Moore also jumped, but he jumped from the 6th floor and he also died. In 1962, a young lady called Pauline Otten jumped from her 9th floor window after having an argument with her estranged husband. However, as she landed on the floor, she actually landed on a man that was passing by underneath. A young man called George Giannani, and he died on impact. So 2 people died in one moment there. 1975, an unidentified 23-year-old woman jumped from the 12th floor window. In 1992, a young man was found in the alleyway behind the building. This one is unclear as to whether he jumped from the building from one of the windows or whether he was killed and then moved there or if he even was murdered at all. This one is still ongoing and unsolved, and the young man is still unidentified. I also spoke earlier about some other crimes that were associated with the Cecil Hotel that got people thinking and that were very strange. In June of 1964, a hotel worker entered a room and he found the dead body of Pigeon Goldie Osgood. Pigeon Goldie, as she was named, was a local lady who everybody knew because she was just like the lady from Home Alone 2 who used to go to the local park and she used to feed the birds, and she would be there every day just being friends with these birds, and everybody was really shocked when they discovered that she had been raped, beaten and murdered. Next to her body, they found her famous Dodgers hat that she wore every single day and a bag full of birdseed. Later that day, a man was found walking through the same park that she would feed the birds in, and he was covered in blood and he was very confused. He was obviously arrested and questioned down at the police station, but he was later released without charge, and I haven't found anything that can tell me why he was covered in blood and what happened. Pigeon Goldie's case is still unsolved and they're still looking for the perpetrator to this day. In 1985, a man called Richard Ramirez, who people might know as the Night Stalker, allegedly stayed at the Cecil Hotel during his killing spree. The Night Stalker, or Richard Ramirez, is known for killing 14 people and molesting lots of children. He's also known to be a Satan worshipper, and his trial was very, 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 very dramatic. He later died in prison of, I think it was cancer, but It's alleged that he stayed there, and also the guy that copycatted his crimes, I don't know his name, I can't remember, he also stayed at the Cecil Hotel. Staff members at the hotel would actually say that Richard Ramirez would walk around the hotel naked and just act really bizarrely and act really strange. That isn't really out of character for him, but it does make me wonder whether being at the Cecil Hotel is the reason he ended up being the way he is. I'll explain that later, just so you know. Another serial killer called Jack Unterweger also stayed at the Cecil Hotel. Before doing this, he was convicted of a crime where he strangled a young woman to death with her own bra, and he was actually sent to prison. However, when he was in prison, he started writing, and his writing was so beautiful that people would petition for him to be released from prison. I find that very strange myself, but it is what it is. Anyway, he was released from prison, and he would later go on to kill more women while he was staying at the Cecil Hotel. I think there's a lesson learned there, people. If he kills somebody, just because he writes a beautiful poem or a beautiful sonnet doesn't mean he's a normal person. Also, there has been claims that a lady known as the Black Dahlia was seen at the Cecil Hotel the day before she was killed. Her real name was Elizabeth Short, and if you've not heard of the story, I'll just briefly tell you. This was the body of a woman that was found in the middle of the street, cut in half, and she had cuts on her face from her mouth to her ear on both sides. Originally, she couldn't be identified, and they really struggled with this, but they eventually found out her name was Elizabeth Short, and unfortunately, her killer still hasn't been found. But it is alleged that she was at the Cecil Hotel the day before her murder, sitting in the bar, waiting for somebody, it would appear. However, I don't know if I believe this one, because I couldn't find any evidence to tell me that this was true and she was actually there. So I don't know about this one. Also, many other people that have done videos on this case have also said that they couldn't find any corresponding information that would prove this was actually true. Whereas with the Richard Ramirez and the other serial killer guy, you can easily and happily find lots of information about that online that would corroborate what people were saying. But the most talked about incident that happened at the Cecil Hotel is the death of Elisa Lam. This is Elisa Lam. She was a 21-year-old student that was attending the University of British Columbia, because that's where she was from. She was from Vancouver, Canada. She was born on the 30th of April 1991 to her immigrant parents who had immigrated from Hong Kong before she was born. Elisa was actually diagnosed with a few mental health conditions before she went on her travels around America. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression. The bipolar disorder itself, she had 4 different types of medication that she took regularly. I also know a little bit about bipolar because, for those of you that don't know, I am actually bipolar myself, but I'm only on 2 types of medication. I don't know if it's different over in America or if it's just different depending on what type of bipolar you have, because I think it is. But the type I have, I'm only on 2 types of bipolar medicine. Basically, one is an antidepressant and one is a stabiliser that will stable my moods if I'm going to go into a manic state. And from what I can gather, these are the types of medications that Elisa was on too. Elisa was also very active on social media. In 2010, she started a blog called Ether Fields, and it was on Blogspot, and she used this blog to talk about her mental health struggles and about fashion, because she had a real big passion for fashion, and she absolutely loved seeing all the different fashions from all over the world. I don't think she travelled to many of these places, but she liked looking on the internet and seeing them and sharing them, and it was just her thing. She was just very active on social media and on her blog. In 2012, she actually wrote a blog talking about how her mental health struggles have affected her life. Earlier that year, she had what I would consider a manic phase, and she ended up having to drop some of her classes. And she shared various quotes and wrote about this experience, saying that things that are holding her back aren't going to stop her for the future and all that kind of positive kind of stuff, which was really nice to read actually, because it made me feel really good, which I don't know whether that was her intent or not, but that's how it made me feel. 2 years after starting her blog, Elisa announced that she was stopping her blog and she was moving over to a site called Tumblr. I have never used Tumblr. I don't know what Tumblr is, but I imagine it's just a social media site that's very similar to Facebook, because she would post quotes and memes and things about fashion and just things about how she was feeling. So I'm assuming it's very similar to that, where you can write your feelings and things like that. She was very active on there, and her username was actually Nouvelle Novue, and it's actually still active to this day. There haven't been any posts for a while, but it's still there, and it's kind of a stark reminder of this woman just gone. She was just gone. For a few months after her death, posts would continuously pop up on her Tumblr account, and we don't really know why, but it was really, really weird that all of a sudden they just stopped, and it was like Elisa was then frozen in time at that particular moment, and it's quite eerie to go and look at. If you want to go and look at, I'll try and link it down below in my description box, so you can just go and have a look at her Tumblr page. After her issues with college and having to drop a few classes, she decided this would be a perfect time to start travelling. She'd always been interested in culture and fashion, and she thought that this was just a perfect moment to just go and see a little bit of the West Coast. And she did call this her West Coast tour. She started in San Diego, and she then went on to LA, and then after LA she was going to go on to Santa Cruz and then San Francisco, where she would end her trip and then travel home to continue her life at college. So on the 26th of January 2013, Elisa arrived in LA on the train, and she checked into the Cecil Hotel. There are reports that originally she was put in the hostel part of the hotel, so they would have rooms where they would put a few like solo travellers in together rather than giving them a whole room to themselves. However, Elisa had to be moved a few days before she disappeared because her roommate said that she was acting very strangely, but there's never been any development on that. They've never told us more about how she was acting strangely. However, the hotel did move her, and they put her in her own private room. Her parents hadn't been comfortable with her going alone. They didn't think this was a good idea for a 21-year-old to be travelling along the West Coast by herself. However, she told them that she would be fine and she would stay in contact with them regularly. And she had done this. While she was in San Diego, she had contacted them near enough every day to let them know that she was safe. Once she checked into the Cecil Hotel, she was due to stay there until the 31st. So she was going to stay there for about 6 nights, and she was going to go and explore the city of LA and see what she could do. And that is what she did. There are accounts of her going around LA, at least on the 26th and the 27th. However, by the time it got to the 31st, the hotel noticed that Elisa hadn't checked out. Also, by this point, her parents were getting a little bit worried because they hadn't heard from her for a few days. So they contact the LAPD, obviously in America, the Los Angeles Police Department, and told them about their concerns about their daughter. They then travelled from Vancouver over to LA to help the police search for their daughter. Now, the police would claim they did a very extensive search during these days after Elisa disappeared. However, I would question that, because although they did search some rooms in the hotel, rooms they could go in, they didn't have any jurisdiction to just walk into rooms. They would knock and ask if they could go in, and if the occupants said they could, then they were allowed to go in, but if the occupants said no, then they weren't allowed to go in. They could go in empty rooms because the hotel would give them access to those rooms, but they'd also knock on other doors, and obviously people are travelling, so they're not always going to be in. So for them to say they search extensively in the hotel would be a lie. And also the fact of where Elisa's body is eventually found, I would also like to question how they can say it was an extensive search. They also brought cadaver dogs to the hotel who didn't alert to Elisa's scent at all. They even took the dogs up onto the roof, and they didn't alert there either. A week later, the LAPD were completely stumped. They had no idea where this girl was. So they started releasing information on the internet, and they would share her picture and share her information, hoping to get more information nationwide. On the 15th of February 2013, the police made a decision, and I don't know whether this was a good decision or a bad decision, I can't really tell, but they released footage of Elisa in an elevator. Now, in this footage, Elisa is acting very strange, to say the least. I do have that footage, so I will play it now and we'll talk through it. So as you can see, the door opens and Elisa enters. She then looks very closely at the numbers on the elevator, and she presses all the ones down the middle. Now, it is said that her room was on the 5th floor, which would be in that middle row. The door obviously doesn't close, and she kind of just pops her head out, and she looks like she's hiding from somebody. She's going against the wall, and then she's hiding in the corner. This is very strange behaviour. I don't know why she's doing this. It looks like she smiles, but I'm not sure. She then kind of hovers around the door for a bit and pokes her head out as if she's trying to find somebody. And then she kind of gets out, but she kind of does like a hump jump, like she's going to scare somebody, and then she backs in and she comes out again. Then she goes off camera for a few seconds and she looks like she's hiding around the corner and she's not really saying anything or doing anything. And then, like I say, she just stands there for a little while and you can't really see what she's doing. It's very strange. She then holds her head and she stumbles back into the elevator while holding onto the doors. And then she goes and seems to frantically press more buttons. It almost looks like she's panicking, like she's trying to get away. And I don't really know what she's trying to get away from, but she seems to be wanting the door to close. She then steps out and does the same thing again. She goes towards the left and goes against the door. And this is where her hands look very weird. Her palms are flat and her fingers are outstretched and she looks like she's arguing with somebody or talking to somebody. She then starts counting on her fingers and just acting very, very strange. I don't know if there's anybody off camera that she's talking to, but I would say there isn't. She's just flailing her arms around and then she walks away and that's it. That's it. She just walks away and the next time we see her, she's actually dead. And then there's a few more minutes of the CCTV from the elevator. The CCTV is pointing down. And I will just quickly show this. The elevator door does eventually shut, but it shuts and it opens and it shuts and it opens. And I don't know why it does that, but that really brings off a creepy vibe. I don't particularly like that. So as you can see in the CCTV, she is acting very strangely, and this CCTV footage was worldwide. Millions of people saw this and had their own theories on what was happening within this video. Some people think she's playing some kind of game, like hide and seek. Is she playing with a child? Is she like playing hide and seek with somebody that's following her? Some think she's trying to get away from her killer or somebody that's chasing her, or something that she can see and she's trying to frantically get away and she's hiding and then she's popping out to see if he's there or not, and then he's at the end where you see her flaying her arms around. Maybe she saw him or her and was talking to them and arguing with them and counting on her fingers to say, these are the reasons you shouldn't hurt me. That's one of the other theories. Some people obviously think this video clearly shows that she's having some kind of mental breakdown or a mental episode. She seems to be very paranoid and she seems to be talking to herself and she just seems to be in a state of mania. She doesn't seem to be right. A few days after the CCTV was released, a few of the guests at the Cecil Hotel actually started complaining that the water was tasting funny. And also some guests were saying that the water looked a weird colour. So the maintenance guy went up to the roof to check the water. He opened one of the tanks and unfortunately he found Elisa's body floating face up and about a foot below the water surface. She was naked and she had obviously bloated from being in the water for so many days. And the clothes that looked like the ones that she was wearing on the CCTV were floating in the tank with her. Her room key and her watch were also found in the tank with her, and the clothes had some kind of sandy substance on them, which is very weird since they've been in the water for approximately 18 days by that point. So I don't know what that is. That bit's a bit weird to me, but I do have a theory on what that could be and I'll explain it to you later. Obviously the maintenance guy called the emergency services and they had to come and drain the tank and cut a hole in the side to get Elisa's body out, as their machinery couldn't get her out from the top. The autopsy determined that she had drowned by accident or by suicide and that there was nothing suspicious about this at all. They concluded that it was probably because of her mental health issues, her bipolar. Something had happened which had caused her to accidentally drown in the water tank. She also had blood work done and the blood work showed that she had nothing in her system that was dodgy, so she had no like illegal drugs, she only had a very tiny amount of alcohol. This is obviously disputed because she'd been in the tank for 18 days, so she didn't have a lot of blood left to have anyway. So a lot of people have questioned whether this was real in terms of by the time they tested it, the drugs and the alcohol would be out of her system anyway, so we can't actually 100% tell whether she was on drugs or extremely drunk at the time that she got into that water tank. I do have a few problems with this case, or I did have a few problems with this case until I looked into it a bit better. One of the problems was, how did she get on the roof in the first place? The main doors that led to the roof had locks on them, and only the staff had the keys or the codes to get out onto the roof. Presumably this is because of all the jumping deaths that they had in the past 40 years or 50 years. But I couldn't understand how Elisa had got onto the roof in the first place. But then it came to my attention that there was actually a fire exit on that roof, and there was a fire exit window. So you could easily open that window and climb through. If she had gone through the main doors, an alarm would have been set off for reception or for security, and they would have known that she'd gone through there, and they would have gone and stopped her. So the only conclusion I can come to think of is, whatever way it happened, whether it was a murder or a suicide or an accident, she must have got onto that roof through that window, unless it was a member of staff that had hurt her. Second, how did she get in that tank? These tanks were approximately 8 foot tall, and they were standing on cement blocks. It is said in the reports and things like that there are no ladders around where Elisa could climb up and get into the tank herself. Also, it is very unlikely that Elisa would be able to lift the top off the tank, climb in, and then close it back on herself. However, in answer to this, after I did my research, I found things that were very interesting, and I'm going to show you a picture. Now, this picture was taken by the LAPD after her body was found. And as you can see, I've dotted out the route that she could have taken to get onto the tank herself. A few years after her death, a young man tried to recreate what she had done, not getting into the water tank, of course, but he showed that she could easily climb out of the fire exit, get onto the roof, and then she could climb up these stairs onto that little roof thing, and then she could have dropped down on top of the water tank. Also, after her murder, and possibly before, it is said that these water tanks could be open. Either the little latch at the top would be left open, or the lid would be left open entirely. So it's completely plausible that she could have climbed up, jumped down, and then just jumped into the water tank for whatever reason. I'm not saying this is what happened, I'm just saying what other people are saying online, just to give you a broad perspective of everything. The third is the autopsy. It still brings up many questions, like, was a rape kit ever done, and if so, what were the results of that? Was there any DNA under her fingernails or anywhere else on her body? Again, that was not mentioned, and it never has been mentioned. I'd like to see that autopsy report, and I'd like to see what is said in there, just for a whole round perspective of everything, because I'm a bit confused. If they didn't do the rape kit, why didn't they do a rape kit? Because you can't assume after somebody has been murdered or after somebody dies that it's not bad, that it's not a crime. Also, if they hadn't checked for DNA again, I want to know why. Why didn't they check for DNA? And if they did, what were the results? Fourthly, where are her phones? A friend of Elisa's came forward and said that she had approximately 2 phones on this trip with her. She had her personal phone, which I presume was like a flip phone that she would use to call her parents and stay in touch with her friends. And then apparently she had borrowed another phone off a friend, a more up-to-date phone, where she could take photos and upload them to her social media. After her death and her room was searched, neither of her phones were found within her personal belongings. So where are they? Also, after her death, her Tumblr account kept having posts added to it, with these posts being added on a scheduled timer that Elisa had set because she was obviously travelling, or was a murderer posting these to her Tumblr account. So the theories of this crime, I'm quickly going to touch on. Elisa was murdered. That was the first theory, of course. They reckon that on the CCTV she was hiding from her killer, eventually caught up with her. It's highly thought that if she was murdered, it was a member of staff from the Cecil Hotel, only because she had to get on that roof somehow, and it would make more sense that it was a member of staff so they could get through onto the roof without setting off the alarm, because they've got the codes and they've got the keys, and then they put her into the tank. Also, people have been saying about the CCTV clip. Apparently, it looks like it's been edited and like parts have been cut out and it's been outstretched, and in some videos it's been slowed down. The copy I'm showing you is the sped up real-time version, but on some of them you can actually tell that the video has been slowed down. But there can be many reasons for these things to happen. One, they've slowed it down to show all the details so everybody can see everything properly. 2, they may have cut it because somebody passed the elevator that has nothing to do with this case and they wanted to protect their identities. But 3, and the most popular one, is that they've cut it down to cut out something suspicious that they don't want the public to know. I don't know what that could be. I'm not 100% sure. I did see a theory where they think that maybe a police officer killed Elisa. This is just a theory, this is not me saying this. So they cut it out to save one of their own. I think that's highly unlikely myself, but you can't put anything past anybody these days. Number 2 is obviously her mental health issues. During her autopsy, her regular medication was found in her system, but it was at a very low percentage. So it makes me wonder whether she had stopped taking her medication for whatever reason, we don't know, and that has sent it into a state of mania. So during mania or manic stages, when somebody is bipolar, they can be completely erratic. They will do things that is like high risk behaviour is what it's called. Me, for example, this is quite personal. When I last had my mania episodes, it was about 5 years ago after my divorce, and I was living on my own with my 2 children, and I decided that I would stop taking my medication because I thought that everything was related to my marriage. And I went through a phase where I would spend thousands of pounds on absolute crap and I didn't realise I was doing anything wrong. That's what I do during my mania. I spend money that I don't have and then I have to pay it back, and it's just a ball ache if I'm honest. All my debt is now paid, but that's what happens. Some people do have worse experience. They'll get paranoia, delusions, hallucinations, things of that nature, which can be explained by the CCTV. Was she hallucinating somebody? Did she think that somebody was following her that wasn't actually there? That's a massive question for me. As a fellow bipolar sufferer, I can understand that, and I think that is a very plausible theory. But a lot of people ask on this theory, but why did she remove her clothes? And there's some very simple explanations for this. She could have simply have just felt that her clothes were restricting her movement because she was having an hallucination. Another explanation is if she had got hypothermia some way. So if her body temperature was to drop lower than, I think it was 97 degrees Fahrenheit, they said in America, then she could suffer with hypothermia. And during this time, they go through something called paradoxical undressing. And they do this because they have a hot flash and they would take off their clothes to try and cool themselves down, when in actual fact their body temperature is extremely low. And this can cause their hearts to stop, it can cause more hallucinations, and just things of that nature. That is an explanation for what could have happened. Obviously, another theory is drugs and alcohol. The hotel is located near Skid Row, which I've already mentioned, and it was high in drink and drugs and criminal activity. Did Elisa take illegal narcotics, or did she drink too much and just became delusional? Because if it had mixed with her medication as well, you're not supposed to drink on bipolar medication. That can also cause delusions and hallucinations and erratic behaviour. And again, that's another very plausible explanation. Except for the fact that during the autopsy, no drugs and no alcohol, well, not enough alcohol was found in her system for them to think that that is what happened. And the fourth, the most ridiculous one in my opinion, is paranormal activity. Now, the hotel had obviously had a very, very long string of bad luck. People were wondering whether the hotel was actually possessed by ghosts or demons. Were ghosts possessing these humans' bodies as a portal and then tricking them into committing suicide? Also, people would say that they could feel a nasty bad energy around the hotel, like it was cursed. So again, were ghosts killing these people? Finally, within that category, there is something that somebody said online that I think is absolute nonsense, but we're gonna go over this. So there's something called the elevator game. Now, the elevator game was invented in Korea, and it's basically a portal to another dimension. According to the people that have played this game, if when you enter the other dimension or the alternate universe, it's exactly the same building that you're already in, but all the lights are off, it's completely empty, and you can see a red cross in the distance. Also, it feels darker, it feels deeper, and it just feels really bad. Also, getting back to the normal world from this other dimension is extremely difficult. Players of this game said that if they exited the elevator, they would become to feel really disorientated and they couldn't get back to the elevator. Also, every time they took a step towards the elevator, it seemed to pull further away, so they were struggling to get back. Eventually, they must have got back to tell these stories, but that is their theory. So I'm just going to quickly talk about the elevator game, and I'm going to read the rules off my tablet. So, rules for the elevator game. You must be in the elevator alone and in a building with more than 10 floors. Get in the elevator at floor 1. Press 4, and when you get to that floor, you press 2. Don't get out. At 2, press 6. At 6, press 2. At 2, press 10. At 10, press 5. Now on floor 5, a woman may enter. Do not talk to her or look at her. If you do, she will take you away. Press 1. And if the elevator goes up, you have been successful and it will take you to the alternate universe. If it goes down, then you have failed. That woman will vanish and you must leave the hotel and never look back. When you get to the 10th floor, the woman will ask you, "Where are you going?" Do not answer her. To return, if the woman isn't with you and you don't enter the elevator, just keep pressing 1 until the doors close and you will return to the 1st floor. Now, a lot of people have said, because Elisa, her room was actually on floor 5, so they have wondered if she had played this game previously and ended up at floor 5 and she'd spoken to this woman and this woman had taken her away. I mean, the common sense scientific person in me says that this is absolute nonsense. But the skeptic in me is like, I don't believe it, but also I don't want to play it. It's a bit like Bloody Mary. I don't believe that in the slightest, but I have played it and I've said Bloody Mary in the mirror 3 times and turned around and nothing's happened, but I've still managed to freak myself out. Crazy. I'm quickly going to touch on what I think happened, and this is strictly my opinion. Don't try and fight me. It doesn't matter. It's my opinion. I'm not right, I'm not wrong. It's just my opinion. So, my opinion is, in fact, that this was an accident. It wasn't a suicide and it wasn't a murder. In my opinion, I think that she stopped taking her bipolar medication. I don't know when and I don't know why, but that's what I think she did. She then began to hallucinate and felt like somebody was following her, possibly something of a demonic nature, something like that. She thought going to the roof would be a good place to hide from this thing because it was clearly trying to stop her using the elevator. So she went up to the roof and she saw the other little bit where she would go up the ladder. She went up onto there and she laid down on top of there initially, which is why her clothes were covered in like a sandy material, which you could see on the roof anyway. When she realised that this wasn't going to work, she decided to jump down onto the water tanks. Now, I don't know if she intended to go into a water tank or if it was just an opportunity that she saw it there and decided to jump in. She possibly thought she would be able to get back out, and once she was in, realised that she couldn't, and unfortunately she drowned. I think she took off her clothes because the clothes were either holding her back or she was starting to get hypothermia from being in the freezing cold water and started taking off her clothes for that reason. Also, due to her paranoia, I highly think that she probably hid her phone somewhere. She probably didn't want people to see her phones and she hid them somewhere, and they're never going to be found now. It's been a while and I don't think they're ever going to be found. I also think the posts that appeared on Tumblr, she had scheduled them to post on Tumblr because she was going to be busy over the next few days. She was travelling. So she'd set these posts up before she even probably left home, and that's why they continued to post. Again, that is just my opinion. I'm not saying that's what happened. I could be completely wrong. The case is actually closed now, so we're not going to even find out, but I'm just saying that that is just my opinion. Please don't fight me on it. I am interested to know your opinions though. What do you think happened? Do you think it was an accident? Do you think it was murder? I've just been looking quickly on my iPad to see if there's anything else that I can say about this case. And I found something quite interesting. So at the time that Elisa went missing, there was actually an outbreak of TB in the Skid Row area. And some people have said that they used Elisa's name as a cover-up for that. What I'm trying to say is that Elisa's disappearance never happened. Elisa Lam never happened. And interestingly though, I think it's the vaccination or the jab or whatever that helped cure TB is this. I think that's why people think that this is some kind of conspiracy theory, and I get what they're saying, but there's CCTV evidence of this person, and she has an entire family, so I actually think that's quite disrespectful to say that she shouldn't even exist in the first place. Again, I'm just saying. So that is the case of Elisa Lam. It was interesting, it was weird, it was freaky, but it's real, and this did actually happen. So it's one of those things. It's completely tragic, and I'm really, really sorry for her parents. Like I said, Netflix are bringing out a 4-part documentary series on this. 10th of February, I think it says, this year, 2021. And it's going to be out on Netflix. I will be watching it, so maybe you want to tune into that too. Again, that's entirely up to you. It depends whether you like this kind of case or not. So that's it. I'm going to leave that there, but I do have a quick announcement first. I have decided that I'm going to start doing something called Midweek Mystery. It's going to be approximately between 20 minutes and half an hour of a case that's a complete mystery, probably unsolved would probably be better. So if you have any unsolved cases that you want me to look into, or anything that you think needs more attention so I can get it out there, please feel free to drop me a comment or contact me on my other social medias, which are all under the name of Passion of Crime, and I will look into that for you, and I will do a case. I can't tell you when that's going to start because I'm going to build up a few cases first, just like I did with my true crime cases, and then I will start that, but I'll let you know on my social medias when that's going to happen. But that's it. That's me for today. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening to me waffle on and speak really fast, because that's what I do. I really, really appreciate you. You are the reason that I'm here. Please remember to subscribe to my channel, like, comment, hit that little bell so you get my notifications, and I will see you in the next one. Remember to stay safe and don't kill anybody. I love you guys. Bye.